A very warm welcome to another episode of Techfluence. Today's guest is Anurag Vaish, a seasoned technology executive, a product leader, and investor with over 2 decades of experience building and scaling breakthrough products in AI, machine learning, and consumer technology. Anurag is widely recognized for his impactful leadership at Google, where he played a key role in shaping and growing iconic products like Google Assistant and Google Search. Now, he is deeply involved in the startup ecosystem, advising and investing in early stage companies that are poised to make a significant impact. We are excited to dive into his journey, lessons from building at scale, and his perspective on the future of AI and innovation.
Hi, Anurag. Welcome to TechFluence.
Thank you. Hello.
Let our audience know about Mentza.
Sure. So Menza is, essentially the bridge between academic and career success, right? So if you think about it, right, how do you do academic success? You do academic success by listening well, reading well, writing well. Nowadays they watch well. We never used to watch anything. But speaking is not part of academic success. You don't need it. You can be academically fantastic without ever having to speak anything. But career success doesn't happen without speaking, like we are speaking right now.
Right.
It's a natural part of career progress, right? You have to do interviews, you have to talk to people, your team, your managers, your vendors, your everybody, right?
Yeah.
And somehow, the academic system doesn't have space for speaking. You can't. You can take 10,000 IIT students and give them 10 hours of lectures every day, but you can't give them 1 minute of talking every day because there's no space for it, right? So what we really created with Mentza is that platform where people can express, right? Can talk, right? And, part of it is confidence building. Part of it is being able to express yourself. And, no matter what people say, right? People say there's a lot of intent-action gap, right? In the sense that students want to be confident, but they don't do things to be confident, right?
Right.
But my behavioral science background has taught me that it's not about people. It's about the design of the environment, right? Where is the environment for confident speaking, right? A student who takes the courage to stand up someday in the class and say something, the chances that he will get mocked, embarrassed, maybe even shouted on by the teacher is quite high.
Yeah,
right?
quite high. Yeah.
So where is the safe environment where we can talk freely, where we can talk repetitively, right?
Yeah.
And so Mentza is that environment where students and young professionals can speak with AI, with mentors, feel the freedom to express themselves, get some feedback, learn and grow. And over time, of course, tactically they get better at interviews. But I think more thematically, they are getting better at being able to express and be that confident, professional that we want people to be. So that's what Mentza is.
Okay. It's a training tool basically for students or maybe new to the company or maybe new to the corporate.
So it's not training because we are not trying to train them into anything, right? It's a platform where people come and speak, right? So if you want to do mock interviews, do mock interviews. If you want to learn how to speak English, talk to AI and figure out how to speak English. If you want to get a command over your own technical knowledge, come talk to AI again. And get the confidence to speak and get some corrections and so on and so forth. So I hate to call it training because that's what they get every day of the week in the classes, right?
Yeah.
So it's more like a practice place.
Mm-hmm.
I try to give this analogy of a swimming pool, right? You can teach as much swimming to a person using YouTubes, right? But ultimately, if you don't give them a pool, there's no way he's learning to swim. So what we are really giving them is a pool where they can infinitely swim as much as they want to, make the mistakes, get some feedback and swim again. Less coaching, more practice, more feedback and not coaching, so to say. So I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, got it. So what inspired you to start Mentza and what problems were you most determined to solve?
So I don't know if you know, but I've been into behavioral sciences for the last 18 odd years. We started our first company in 2008, 7-8, which was called Final Mile. It wasn't the final mile, so Mentza has happened after that. So
Okay.
not final. But that company was the world's first behavioral science-based design company, and the idea was to kind of do things that help people change their behavior without necessarily banking on this idea that people need to be aware, people need to be motivated, inspired. No, if you want people to drive safely on the road, there is one way where you kind of plaster the whole road with posters and funny ideas, and assume that people will read those funny things and change their behavior.
Change now.
But the other is to design road in such a way that people change their behavior, right? So we used to do that. We used to do work in sanitation, road safety, whatever. And one of the things that I used to be intrigued about was this whole idea of confidence, right? Because I come from a very small town like Siliguri. And when I came to Delhi, I got into Hindu. Actually, today I was at Hindu. There was a founding day, 127th year. But when I came into Hindu, I realized, coming from a small town, don't even feel confident to stand, forget about talk to people, right? We never knew whether we are dressed properly, whether we have the right language, diction, this, that, whatever else. And so, once my company, the Final Mile, got sold and Fractal bought the company out, and I did my few years of lock-in in Fractal, I was quite keen to kind of work in this whole education sector and not do what education typically tends to do, which is teach more, right? And so wanted to kind of turn the table and become like more a practice place rather than a teaching place. And interestingly, Mentza is mentoring Z to A. So mentoring A to Z is what happens in the classroom.
Classroom, yeah.
Mentoring Z to A, which is just the reverse of it, is what happens on the platform, right? Where people talk rather than the teachers and the coaches talking, right? So that was the idea, that let's kind of see if we can work with the young people and make them confident workers rather than just great academics.
So, do you think the next generation should seriously consider startup as a career path?
It's already there in a big way, right? It's quite a thing, right? So when I was kind of passing out from my MBA, it wasn't as much of a thing, right? I can't remember anybody from my batch jumping into startups immediately after finishing their
college,
MBA
yeah.
program, right? But nowadays, if you go to any institute, there's enough and more kids saying, you know what, I'm getting into startups. Right? So it's become a thing. There are incubation centers. So if you go to IIT Chennai, IIT Delhi, you go to IIT Ram, anywhere, there'll always be some kind of an incubation center. Means the environment is also designed to kind of promote that idea, right? And for a country like India, right, we have no shortage of problems. And all startups need is a problem, right? And if you go and stand on the road right now, you'll find 10 problems to solve, right? So we have enough problem and enough people. So we're not a small country where you have a good problem, but you don't have enough consumers, right? So we have a lot of people, a lot of problems. Now we have good capital also. I think there is enough people wanting to invest. The angel houses are flourishing, right? Everybody wants to become a quasi founder, right? By kind of investing a small amount of money in a startup. So I think the environment is very ripe for it. The technology has become more democratized, so you don't need to really go invest millions in a technology. You could literally kind of stitch up a product at home, right? So I think everything is quite favorable. Parents have become much more conducive to the idea of a startup. Earlier, if I had told my mom when getting out of my college that, want to do a startup, she's like, are you going mad, right? Go get a job, right? Get some income. But that's not the case. I think a lot of parents are comfortable with the idea of startups. My worry is different. My worry is, there's too much bad noise around startups, right? Startups look like instant success. There's a lot of glamour. You look at these few successful ideas, right, and feel that it's easy, right? Look at Dipender, right, who made Zomato. The company started in 2008. It's not something that happened in 2017, 18, right?
Right.
And it took 12, 14 years, right, before it kind of even got listed. And now it's not that it's a flying success, right? There is still profitability issues and all, right? So it takes a lot of time. Success rates are not very high, right? Funding rates are still low. So caution is the thing to do. But for somebody who has a good idea and a determination to solve a problem, I think you can't find a better time to do a startup. But you have to figure it out for yourself, right? If you're made for it.
Yeah.
Because it's a tough journey. It's quite lonely. It's quite tough. It takes something to wake up every day and say, you know what, I'm going to make it today. And then go to sleep saying that, okay, today did not work out. I'm going to make it
Maybe
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Right? But you have to say that I'll make it tomorrow. Because if you say I'm going to make it day after tomorrow, then you're dead tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? So it's tough, but it's very exciting. To that
So
extent.
people are preparing their mind for.
Yeah, you have to be entrepreneurial without necessarily being a founder. I mean, I go to so many colleges, and whenever a student picks her hand up or his hand up and asks a question, I'm like, that's entrepreneurship, right? You have the ability to beat that fear of asking something.
Yeah.
Beat the fear of sounding stupid, beat the fear of being laughed at, right? Beat the fear of even the person on the other side making a little joke out of you, right? All of those things can happen, right? If you have that little bit saying, who cares, I'm going to just ask my question because I want to ask a question. That's entrepreneurialness. If you have it, then that's a lead indicator that you know how to survive this market for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years before you will see any success. Right? Startup successes are not easy. I mean, look at all of those companies around you. Yesterday, Fractal got listed, right? And we sold our company to Fractal in 2018. Fractal started in 2000. It's 26 years they took to list. Right? Imagine the kind
It's
of
a long
things they would have
journey,
gone through, right? So if you're made for it, go for it.
So is entrepreneurship for everyone or only a certain mindset?
Mindset is required, I think, because like I said, it's not easy, right? You need to be very determined, very committed, almost like a Salman Khan, right? You love, bol diya to main apni bhi nahi sunta. You have to be like that, right? Because, there's so many people who will tell you your ideas are wrong, right? I've been told, right, by a set of VCs, right? I mean, great horses, bad courses. Now, whatever you make out of it, right? It's just like right people, but you're running on the wrong course, right? People will tell you this is this like gimmick, this is a rapper, and so on and so forth, right? Revenues don't come easy. The commitment is 24/7, all days of the week. I like the idea that there is no difference between work and life now. They're just one and the same thing, right? I mean, so if you have that commitment, determination, it works. If you don't have it, unless you are very quickly successful, it can become very painful, right? So mindset check is important.
Yeah. So we are closing with the last question. What is one honest piece of advice you would give to Gen Z about startup?
Yeah, I think Gen Z, whatever that means. I mean, it's 20-year-old probably, right? I think there is a lot of time to be a founder, right? So there is no need to rush into it, right? If you find a good problem to solve, right, then go solve it. If you don't have a good problem to solve, don't get into it because it's just good to get into it, right? There is no easy money, right? I mean, there is no easy money anywhere in the world. Forget about, in startups, right? So I think the noise around startup, like I said in the beginning, is crazy. It seems like there is billions to be made. It's not true, right? But like, I'm talking like an expert. I'm not. I'm like a struggling startup, right? So I had one startup I sold. The second one I'm still trying to work. It's been 4 years, right? It's easier to give advice like I'm doing right now. But I mean, I wouldn't get into startup just to do a startup. I'll get into startup if I have a good enough problem to solve, right? And
so you have to be a problem solver.
You have to. If you're not solving a problem, you're not a startup. Then you're a businessman.
Yeah.
Right? Saying I've got enough capital, I can open one more store, one more franchisee. That's not necessarily the nature of startups. Startup is about innovation, problem solving, distributing the solution to enough people at some price, so you kind of make some money. So it's really from the scratch. And if you don't have a good enough idea, I don't think you'll go very far with it.
Okay, so how do you see audio communities evolving? Whereas we have text and video in competition?
Yeah. So not necessarily communities, but audio as a way to kind of interact, I think is quite beautiful. One, when it gets to being interactive, I think audio is the right balance between a video and a text, right? So text is very, very safe, um, almost emotionless, right? So to say, video is very evolved, right? Requires more effort, more preparation, more bandwidth to kind of do anything on video. Audio, I think, is that balance between not being emotionless, right? So you have a voice, you have emotion, you have empathy, you have expression, you have quality to what you're saying. At the same time, it's quite low friction, right? So you don't really need high bandwidth phones. You don't need yourself to look good. You don't need the lights and all of those things that you need in a video, right? So from a practice point of view, I think, especially with what we are trying to do, which is to get people to start speaking and become confident expressors of their ideas, I think it just provides the right kind of safe environment, right? And the ability to just go on and on and on, right? So that's how I see audio in our context. In general, also, I mean, a earphone has become like an extension of yourselves, right? So you
Yes.
just kind of, just today when I was kind of coming, this driver of mine was honking because this lady was on the middle of the road, literally, kind of pulling a bag out of her auto or something. And I was a little concerned, why is she not hearing, right? And then as crossing her, I realized that she has earphones on, right? So it's that ubiquitous right now. It's everywhere, right? And it's a cheap device. Just plug it and go, right? So to me, if I have to reach, tier 2, tier 3, as in Tripura last week, the networks are not great, right? You're not carrying like a lot of data on your phone. If you want to kind of practice while you're running, while you're talking, while you're walking, while you're eating, while you're sitting in a public transport, right? I think audio is unbeatable over there, right? So to me,
It's the
audio
easy process.
it's frictionless, but it's not ineffective. It is quite effective, right? Because you have to still express yourself.
Yes.
Right? You just can't copy and paste a text.
Yeah.
You have to say it.
Yes, you have to say.
So to that extent, it's effortful. It has a right level of discomfort, but it's not as demanding as video is. Video is, to my mind, very, very demanding as an environment for people to start the practice of speaking, so to say.
As like we had radio in our earlier days, so that's how people used to be, like emotionally also they used to get the. Today video has come up, which is more effective, but then I think that's where you are connecting to.
No, so there's a difference, right? So when you're looking at one-way communication, video is way better. So watching a YouTube, in fact, it's not comparable. I mean, there are times when I want to be on Spotify listening to audio. There are times when I want to watch a video on YouTube, right? But that's one way.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is two-way communication,
Okay.
right? So two-way communication, the erstwhile radio is incomparable. Two-way communication is where you and I are both speaking to each other, right? And that's what we do on Menza, where people speak to somebody. It's not you're not speaking against a mirror. You're not speaking to yourself. You're speaking to somebody who is responding, empathizing, and kind of giving you feedback and asking you questions back and forth, just the way we are doing.
Okay.
In these kind of environments, I think for us to reach almost every student in the country or every young professional in the country, audio is way less frictionful as compared to video, right? So yeah, in that context, I was talking about audio being a
Understood.
good balance.
Right. What advice would you give to the first-time founders?
Yeah, so I also was a first-time founder some time back. It's been a few years now. So I think when you're just starting off as a founder, there's a lot of enthusiasm, right? And that enthusiasm drowns everything that is structure, right? So for instance, right, I mean, a simple thing, you say two co-founders, right? If you're in your first startup, most likely that you have no agreement between yourselves, right? You're just two friends or two colleagues or two buddies who are equally passionate about a problem, and you get on with it, right?
Yeah.
But you realize over time, right, that in difficult environments, and startup is a very difficult environment, friction does arise, right? And then when friction arises, that's the best time when you're looking at, what was the agreement between me and him or me and her?
Yes.
And there's no agreement, right? We just said, what, let's
We
go
do it.
build something, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of things, and that's not the only thing, right? I mean, this idea, which is, who is your co-founder, right? Is he just a buddy, or is he somebody who adds value to your organization, right? How do you spend money? How do you raise money? How do you build the right kind of team? How much do you invest in innovation? How much do you invest in distribution? All of those things are in the moment of enthusiasm, which is what a new founder is like, especially if you're a young founder. Some of those things get drowned, and you're kind of driven by this passion of the idea.
Yes.
But when I was in my second one, I was more thoughtful about who's going to be my co-founders, what are we going to build, how much are we going to invest in innovation, and so on and so forth, right? But the first one didn't turn out bad, so it's not that enthusiasm is bad. The first one turned out pretty nice, right?
Yeah.
So, but I still think, that a little bit of thought around how are you structuring your relationship with co-founders is vitally important to my mind, right? It kind of saves a lot of pain in the future, especially if you're going to have pain. And the chances that you're going to have pain in a startup is very high. Right? So,
Yes, definitely. True. So, how do you see innovation with sustainability in a startup?
Yeah, I think it flips, right? So, I always say, right, that startups are designed for chaos, right? If there's not enough chaos, you can't build a startup. You need enough chaos, right, where things are kind of churning and you're changing ideas and, dumping things and picking things and so on and so forth, right? So, in the initial phases of your startup, right, you have to be innovation driven, right, where innovation takes precedence over everything, right? But the idea of a startup is not to just innovate, right? The idea of a startup is to distribute that innovation profitably, right? So you need to find ways of taking it to people, being able to make some money out of it, and then subsequently, hopefully, some profit also out of it, right? And that's where sustainability kicks in, right? But if you lead with sustainability, I don't think that gives you the right environment to build a good startup. The starting point is chaotic innovation. But when you have found the seed of innovation, I think that's when you start changing yourself as the founder. You start building the right teams, put the right structure, get into more sustainable environments to grow. But initially, no matter what anybody says, my experience is chaos is great. Just go innovate, but just find a way to come out of it, because we get used to it, then you never come out of it, because innovation is so satisfying that you can literally be trapped in your own innovative vicious circle, right? You're like every day innovating, but there is no value to that innovation because you're not distributing it or you're not making money out of it. So get in it, but also know how to come out of it. It's like a chakravyuh. गए तो बाहर आने का रास्ता ही पता होना चाहिए.
Right. As you said that you go to colleges, you go to different institutes. So how do you suggest students, like, should they go for a stable job or should they definitely be going to build up a startup?
I think, people should choose what they want to do. I still think a lot of people go for jobs, right? It's not like the majority is into startup. No, not at all. I think a minority is in the startup kind of a mindset. A stable job, I mean, I don't know if I like the term stable job or not, right? But a good initial experience is always good, right? So if you're going to a company which has a set of operations, they have products, they have likability for the products among the consumers and all, knowing how the business runs, what it means to kind of, sell and make money out of it. That experience is very, very vital. And that's what I was telling earlier, right? I mean, there is no reason to be rushing into a startup, right? You could work for 3, 4, 5 years and then make a startup. There is nothing wrong. My friend, Utpal, he made this startup called Servagram, which is a beautiful company now. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a very, very nice company. he worked in ICICI for what, 20, 25 years maybe, and then started a company and is doing wonders, right? Right now it's a beautiful company. So I think we are working for much longer anyways nowadays. So patience is required. There is no need to rush. And company experiences are good because they teach you how to build that what you call sustainable systems, right? I don't know if I answered your question, but I
No,
don't
you
think there's
have,
a great
yes.
answer to it.
Experience is the key. Like people jumping into a startup without having a previous any experience would definitely not lead them to.
So the negative side of it is that you can get very cozy with a job like that, right? So, when you get used to the idea of a monthly salary and yearly growth and titles changing and your bigger teams to work with, right? If you get into that middle management kind of a level, I've seen many, many people who get, who are constantly in this thing around, I have to do something on my own, but they never end up doing, right? Because that cycle of promotion and increments and
that
status,
cozy environment, they don't come out.
it's too
of it.
comforting, right?
Yeah,
and
too
and then
comforting.
having earned a few lakhs a month to, like I used to say, right, so I worked in a few companies before I started. I worked for 6 years across 3-4 companies, and I used to say, that on the first of every month when I was working there, I used to look for why is the money not dropped in my account, right?
Yes,
And
of course.
and now as a startup guy for the last 18 years, on the first I'm like looking at why is the money not gone from my account, right? Because I have to pay, right? So that difference is quite huge, and once you get comfortable in it, or not comfortable, but you get habituated to it, it's not easy to then quit and say, you know what, okay, from tomorrow, no salaries, no growth, no designation, clean your own floors, find your own people. It does get difficult. But then, like I said, Utpal, right? So you go through a cycle of 15, 20 years of work, and then you realize that you've achieved almost everything that you wanted to, and now you want to do something on your own. It again becomes easier now. So after 5-6 years, I think it's a little difficult to get out.
Right. So you have already addressed that startups are making a lot of noise, right? And people think there are a lot of glamour associated with it. But then definitely there are issues, right? Definitely there are realistic problems. So what should one be prepared for that realistic issue?
Yeah, so just to correct, right, startups are not making the noise. There's a noise around startups, right? So it's not that, a Zomato startup or founder or a Zero the founder is coming and saying, look, it's easy, this, that. No, nothing of that sort is happening. But the noise around it is quite significant,
Yes,
right? The
quite
way the media
significant, yeah.
presence and everything, it looks like, wow, suddenly somebody became a billionaire, right? It didn't happen that way. So to go back to your question around what should one be careful about, is that what you want to know?
Yeah.
I think, it takes a lot of determination, right? And I told my co-founders, right, I mean, we could be the brightest people on earth and we could have a self-image of being, designed for success and everything else, right? But you can't take the stats out of the equation. The stats are that a lot of startups fail. A lot of startups never make money. A lot of startups never get funded. That's the reality, right? And if you say you're going to beat the stat every time, then that's just foolishness, right? So you have to know that the stats are bent against you. You have to work very hard with a lot of commitment, sacrifice, a lot of things that others are doing. So if I was working in a stable environment, like you said, I could have a weekend off every week. If I'm working in a startup, even assuming that you will have a weekend off is foolishness. There's nothing like that, right? You're working through the week. Not that I'm advocating for it. So we've, I don't know about others, but I think a lot of the startup founders I've seen, they found a way to weave work and life together in such a way that you don't have to separate it out and say, oh, weekends are for fun and weekdays are for work. That's not how it is, right? You do find time to read. You do find time to binge Netflix. You do find time to kind of go on a holiday. But holidays are not something where you say, my phones are switched off. That doesn't happen. You take your laptop, you take your phone, you take the calls, you do meetings.
Yes, you have to manage your time.
You have to manage. You have to just blend it in, right? And that can only happen when you really love what you're trying to solve.
Yes.
And there's some momentum, you have a good team around you. So yeah, it requires a lot of determination, commitment to my mind to do that.
Right.
The environment is very conducive, right, for startups. I think it's probably the best time to be in a startup. Right? There is enough money, there's enough people, enough problems, enough technology, right? Distributions have become easy. Like, you know, forget about technology products like ours, right, which can be distributed online any which ways, right? But even if you're making physical products, right, with a platform like Amazon now, the distribution has become so much easier. It's not that you kind of have to find a place in a market where you can open a shop and put a billboard and then start selling, right? So I think we don't give enough credence or enough credibility or enough credit actually to the idea that distribution has become
Easy.
so much more democratized, right? Easy nahi bolunga because it costs. Everybody is competing for the same space, so it's not that Amazon is empty and you put a product and everybody sees your product, right? So to find visibility for your product is not easy, right? But the channel is there where you can kind of put your product out. If you're smart people, you have the smart money, you can kind of run your product on those kind of vehicles, right? Which was not the case earlier, right? So physical or digital products have much better distribution engines now. And therefore much cheaper also. Opening a shop is not as cheap as opening a shop on Amazon. You could just open it right now, right, for that matter. So POCs have become easier, which means you can at least do a proof of concept, even if not a full scale up, right, so to say. Technology is easy, right? I mean, now to with all the LLMs, you can even write a code. Right? You don't need to get a coder also to write a code, right? So the environment is very, very conducive. Government is very favorable to startups now. But like I said, right, I mean, if you're not solving a good enough problem, then it's not a startup. You're just having fun, right? So somebody could say that to me as well. So I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying what it feels like, right? So somebody could look at me and say, "You guys are just having fun. There is no real problem to solve."
But they don't know that what background it is creating, right?
Yeah.
And I went through all your messages on the LinkedIn, and I read through all of them, and I came to know like how Mentza is helping people, how problems are solved. So it's a great mind at the back of this all entire work, right?
I'm sure. I mean, there is some mind to it. If great mind to pata nahi. But founders can also get very self-obsessed with ideas, right? Saying that no matter what feedback is coming from the environment, from your product, from your consumer, you just believe that you got a great idea. You just need to keep pushing, and you will find success, right? So all human problems, basically.
From behavioral science to Mentza, what has been like more interesting to you?
Yeah, so it's a continuation, right? Because when we were running the behavioral science firm, Final Mile, it was a consulting firm, right? So we used to work for clients and solve whatever behavioral challenge they had, right? So if railways came and told us that 10 people are dying every day in Bombay while trespassing tracks, can you solve that problem? We would go solve it. If roads guys came and said, people are dying on the roads, solve our problem, we'll solve it. If, the government came and said, there are people opening Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana bank accounts, but are not using them, solve it, we'll solve it. If Gates came and said, HIV ka problem solve karo Africa, maybe we would go and solve it, right? It's a very client-based, project to project, saying, find a problem, get paid for it, go solve it, right? Use behavioral sciences, which is very interesting because a lot of behavioral science, the way we are doing it was not just understanding why humans behave the way they do, which is, sometimes, in fact, not sometimes, most of the times, it's hidden in plain sight, right? I mean, you can look at all the stupid arguments people give you why they did what they did. But really, right, there is way much more happening in your brain that you yourself don't know. Right? So if somebody asks me why I'm sitting the way I'm sitting, I can always give you a smart answer, right? But a lot of this processing is happening in the back of our head, what we call the non-conscious brain, and we ourselves are not aware why we are doing what we are doing, right? So a lot of our work there was to figure out why people do what they do, But that's not interesting enough because knowing the problem is not good enough. Finding a solution is what is really great, right? And we kind of build this whole idea of non-conscious design, which is, designing solutions in such a way that it just kind of sits in an environment and changes your behavior without necessarily requiring you to be aware of it even. You don't need to be even aware. Forget about being motivated and inspired and badgered with the idea smoking is bad, put a lung on that damn thing and make you fear. We never trusted all of those things. We said, why don't we just design environments in such a way that behavior changes, right? And if people get to know, great. If they don't get to know, I don't give a damn, right? Behavior change happens. But that was design consulting, so to say. Menza is a product version of the same philosophy. Right? The same philosophy of saying, you know what, kid, you need to be confident, you need to speak a lot more, you need to go stand up in a class and ask the right question, go for elocution competitions, extempos, debates, this, that, all the inspiration. Look at me, I the father, I the mother, we used to speak so much, you don't do that, that's just bull. Right? The idea is to create the environment where people find it safe to express themselves, to practice, to get feedback, right? And so to me, Menza is that kind of a design, right? Where people can just go and talk. People don't need to be scared. People are not getting judged. People are getting feedback, right? People are improving themselves, right? So to me, the same ideas of behavioral science and non-conscious design, which was a project-to-project consulting for clients, has now kind of taken the form of a product, which I can distribute widely to audiences. It's a continuity to my mind.
Thank you so much, Anurag, for
Thank you so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you so much.